Okay, so we're going to continue studying. Last week it was Hoshana Rabbah. I mentioned that in my opinion, there's a likelihood that Israel will begin attacking Iran after Shemini Aseret. I was off by one day. So Israel started attacking, that Israel will start attacking Iran. I think that's what I said. Now, there's just a couple of points I want to make about that. Number one, Israel sent 140 warplanes to attack Iran. They knocked out Iran's air defense systems.
Some say they didn't do anything. Like
So I'm letting you know.
I know.
Right. The Iranian media. I'll explain. The Iranian media.
Tell their people what they want to
Yeah, the Iranian media, they're scared to death.
They're not going to admit it.
Iran is scared to death because if they don't reply to Israel, then they have to justify to their people, well, what are we like? Are we a country or not a country? They just sent 140 airplanes. So they have to try to minimize it because they don't want to reply, because if they reply, Israel will smash them. Because the next step is, and this is the point, Israel knocked out their air defense systems. They have satellite. We have satellite photos, so we know what happened. But why would they do that?
I know.
Right.
To weaken them for the next strike.
They're preparing it for the next strike. So anybody who thinks this is the last strike in Iran is mistaken. And they also got one building. So if you look at the satellite photos, they got one building. Besides the air defense systems, they also got one building right next to the oil refineries, a very specific building. Meaning Israel is telling them, we know where your oil is, we know where the things are, and we can pinpoint and destroy a very specific building and not destroy anything else. So it's happening. What I said last week is beginning to take place. I want to add a couple of points. Mikey pointed out that the Times of Israel had an article that Saudi Arabia and Iran are doing joint war exercises. And I said that article was incorrect, and I was correct. It is Iran. They're Shiites. They hate the Sunni Muslims. The Sunni Muslims, Saudi Arabia, are terrified of Iran.
One of the rockets that hit Israel from Iran was from Russia.
Right.
Russia's giving them...
Supplying them, So they are, they're terrified. Saudi Arabia has a population that supports the Palestinians. The leadership of Saudi Arabia doesn't care less about the Palestinians. And there was some leak of something that the Crown Prince said that would have been very damaging for him because it was very anti-Palestinian. So to save face, they announced, we're doing joint exercises with Iran. Okay, just wanted to explain what that was about. There's no joint exercises with Iran. And if anything, and actually, how do you think the planes got from Israel to Iran?
Saudi Arabia?
Over Saudi Arabian airspace. So it's
And Jordan.
Jordan, but the point is Saudi Arabia was put into question by an article from the Times of Israel. So I was just pointing out that article was incorrect. I want to say one more thing. China and North Korea. So we all know that North Korea is probably the most evil country on the face of the planet.
China hates
anybody who comes out of North Korea, God, wow, what those people have in their stomach. It's just not to be believed. Starvation, it's crazy. Anyway, North Korea was helping Hezbollah build the tunnels. Wow. That's crazy. North Korea. Now, who was helping in Gaza with the tunnels? China. So China, North Korea, right?
How were they helping?
Iran. They were helping. How do you build tunnels in mountains?
How were they helping?
They were physically helping with. They had personnel in Lebanon. I'm talking about the North Korean now, and similarly to the Chinese in Gaza. They were. You know what type of tunnels they had there? My son told me they had. My son Baruch Hashem, he got out of Lebanon. You know they had a tunnel there.
Cheap labor.
They had a tunnel there. No, it wasn't just cheap labor. Technology. These tunnels. One of them that was able to hold over 1,500 people, terrorists, in one underground complex filled with weapons and everything else, beds, ready. Literally, in a minute's notice, they'd be able to go into the tunnel and exit in Israel and conduct an October 7th type massacre. This is the types of tunnels they had in Lebanon, and it wasn't one tunnel, it wasn't two tunnels, it wasn't three tunnels. Literally, all of southern Lebanon.
That is Korea and China.
So Lebanon with North Korea. Lebanon was North Korea. Gaza, China.
There's Chinese people in Gaza?
There were Chinese people in Gaza. There was Chinese military equipment in Gaza. So how do you like that?
My
I saw
understanding
that
is,
North Korea sent troops to Russia too. Military.
yeah.
Oh yes, of course,
Fight
they're helping
against
Russia.
Ukraine.
So we know what the axis of evil is
But
over
they
here.
said China doesn't like North Korea. They prefer North Korea.
China, no, China and North Korea are allied.
They're allied, but they prefer no North Korea. They want them.
Could be, but the bottom line is they're using them. The bottom line, they don't like each other. Perhaps that may be the case.
But they're on the same page.
Right, but they're on the same page. So anyway, so it's just very interesting the way these things are working out. And China, by the way, just a last point, and then we'll get to the Gemara. It's kind of related with Gog and Magog and all these wars. China is on the verge of collapse. They have a severe demographic problem. They don't have enough young people, and their economy is collapsing. They're going to go over the next few years through a severe deflationary phase, and inshallah, God should knock them down. And I say this because they're helping Israel's enemies conduct the worst massacres against the Jews. God should punish them. So we'll see what happens with China, the economy there, and we'll see how this develops. But in the meantime, I just have a feeling that this wasn't the last attack by Israel. The question now is, when does Israel attack the oil refineries? That's a good question. I don't know whether they're going to wait for after the election, before the election. That's a question I don't know. But I can tell you that it's going to happen.
If Netanyahu didn't wait now, he's not going to stay hit.
Could be.
He's going to go back.
Could be. It could very well be. I just don't. I know that Israel was coordinated with the U.S. on this last attack. So the fact that they were coordinated means they might be coordinated on the next attack, and maybe Biden doesn't want Israel attacking before the elections.
Regardless who's elected, they're gonna get.
Oh yeah, of course. No,
right after election.
Israel is going to finish this job, and I've been saying this for a
Before
year.
January.
And people were criticizing Bibi Netanyahu. He's not doing anything. I saw what he was doing, and he's going to decapitate Iran. The world is going to be a different and better place. Be'ezrat Hashem. We're really looking at the verge of a better world, but Biden has to be out of office and Trump has to come into office for that transition to take place. Okay, let's.
Didn't you say that the oil refineries would, if they were to be struck, then it would be Israel's sort of last-ditch resort?
No, it wouldn't be a last. First of all, Israel is not looking. Israel is looking for regime change, right? So they're going to attack the nuclear reactor. They're not going to allow the nuclear plants to stay there. I can tell you that already. They want regime change. And to bring about whatever it takes to take regime change, if it means striking the oil, I think they're going to strike the oil. I think Trump is going to want them to strike the oil because China needs their oil. Without Iranian oil, China is in big trouble. So I think that's part of the plan. That's my opinion. Let's study now. So we are now Tanura Banan. Now, we studied last week about Nebuzaradan. We're studying now about Goyim, who were enemies of the Jewish people, oddly enough, and yet we're going to read what their role was. So let's start with this one. Naaman. Who was Naaman? And then we're going to see what happened to Naaman. So Naaman was the general of the Syrian army in the days of, after Eliyahu Hanavi, his Talmid was Elisha. So Elisha was in Israel, and the Syrian army would have incursions into Israel. There was a war. It was called Aram. It wasn't called Syria. It was called Aram. And the star general of Aram was a person called Naaman. This person called Naaman was harassing the Jewish people. He would enter Israel. His wife's personal servant was a Jewish girl. And one day Naaman gets leprosy. He gets, well, it's actually not leprosy, a skin disease called sarat. In Hebrew, it's called sarat, where there's blotches of the skin turn white. It's embarrassing. And he was a famous general, and he doesn't know what to do. So now, this Jewish girl, she speaks to Naaman's wife. She says, listen, I only wish that your husband would go see the Jewish prophet in Israel, because he can help him. This is Jewish prophet in Israel. Yeah, I'm letting you know. Go to the Jewish prophet. His name is Elisha. If he goes to him, he'll help him. So now remember this guy Naaman was like, he was an oppressor of the Jewish people. As I said, he was making wars against Israel, going in, kidnapping, pillaging, very, very bad situation. But this girl, she kind of like, she's innocent. And she's just telling them, yeah, go to the prophet. Okay, so he decides to go to the prophet, and he gets to the prophet, Elisha. Elisha Hanavi is studying Torah. He doesn't have time to see Naaman. He doesn't want to see Naaman. He doesn't want to waste his time, hear him or whatever. So, okay, so he's studying Torah. He just sends his shamosh, a person called Gehazi. He tells Gehazi, listen, just go out. This general just came to see me. He saw in the prophetic vision exactly why the general's coming to see him. Tell him to go dip in the waters of the Jordan River. He's going to be cured. So Gehazi goes out. He tells Naaman, the prophet is busy now, but just go to the Jordan River. He gets really pissed off, and he's like, I made the whole trip from Syria. I come to Israel, and this is what they tell me to dip in the Jordan River. Are you kidding me? You know how many beautiful rivers I have in Damascus? You're telling me to dip in the Jordan River? So he's like he's upset, and he's like, he doesn't want to hear of it. He doesn't want to. So he's going back to Syria. On the way back to Syria, one of his aides says, listen, you're already in Israel. The prophet told you to go to Jordan River. Go to the Jordan River. What's the big deal? Just dip in. I don't know. Maybe it'll cure you. So he goes in. He dips. He gets completely cured. He can't believe it. He's beside himself. He's going nuts. He's like, and I'm just going to take out the Tanakh because you have to hear the pasuk, and then you're going to understand why the Gemara says what it says. It says that he became a Ger Toshav. And I'm going to explain to you what a Ger Toshav means, and then you'll see how that connects with the pasuk. So he comes back to Elisha. He wants to thank him. He's like, so here's a pasuk. So he tells Elisha, listen. He knows. So now Naaman understands that Elisha is the real thing. Okay, he understands it's not like one of these phony, pagan magicians. It's all sketch. He's like, in his mind, he's understanding that the Jewish religion, Judaism, the Torah is emet. Like that's what he's realizing. So he comes back and he tells Elisha the following. He says, right. Okay. He says, I realize now the real God is the God of the Israels, of the Jews, right? And I want to give you a gift, and I'm not going to get into the story now with the gift. That's a different part of the story and what happened with Gehazi. But he says like this, listen, I want you to forgive me for one thing. I don't want to do Avodah Zarah anymore. I do want to accept, I want to accept the fact that I'm not going to do any more Avodah Zarah because I know it's a lie. But he says, here's my problem. He's talking to the prophet. He says, can God forgive me for the following sin that I'm going to be doing? And here's the sin. Now, I am the general of Syria, of Aram, actually. The king of Aram takes me with him wherever he goes. Now, there is a place of Avodah Zarah called Bet Rimon. And my master, meaning the king, is going to take me with him. Now, I can't tell the king I don't want to go to the place of Avodah Zarah. Now, whenever he comes in, because I'm the general, and apparently he was big, when the king comes in, he bows down before the Avodah Zarah, the king, and he's holding on to me as he's bowing down, so I, by force, end up bowing down with the king, right? But I don't want to bow down. I don't want to bow down, but I don't have a choice. Yislah Adonai le'abdecha b'davar hazeh. Can God forgive me for this sin that I'm going to be entering the place of Avodah Zarah with the king, and I'm going to be bowing down before the Avodah Zarah with the king. And the prophet says, Lech l'shalom, go in peace, meaning it's going to be forgiven. Now you're going to understand the Gemara. Tanura Banan.
Is that the word God?
Yes, Amonai.
Okay.
Yeah, he says, Beishtahavayati bet rimbon, Yislach Adonai le'abdecha b'davar hazeh. It's Yod Ke Bar Ke. Yeah, exactly. That's it. He accepts that the God of Israel is real. By the way, when the Goyim see the miracles that are happening in Israel, that are going to happen in Yemot HaMashiach, they're going to acknowledge it as well. That's it. There's not even a question, right? So he says he became a Ger Toshav. He doesn't say he didn't become a proselyte. He didn't convert to Judaism. He became a Ger Toshav. Ger Toshav is a person who accepts Sheva Misot B'nei Noach. There are many Goyim in the world today that they formally accept Sheva Misot B'nei Noach, and they say so. They're Noahide Gentiles, and they accept upon themselves that, okay, we're not going to be Jewish, but we're going to accept the Sheva Mitzvot. Harambam says if a Goy accepts Sheva Mitzvot B'nei Noach, it's called the Ger Toshav. This Ger has a right to live in Israel. Should he choose to live in Israel, he has a right to live in Israel. That's it. If you're a Goy and you want to live in Israel, you must, at a minimum, accept Sheva Mitzvot B'nei Noach. We're not going to force you to convert. Like if you're an American and you want to live in America, okay, you can live here, let's say, for a few years on a green card, and then you have to leave, right? Like I work in a technology company, so one of the problems is sometimes we have people coming from different parts of the world. We need them in America, so we have to get them like I think it's a V1 visa, H1, yeah, that's an H1 visa exactly. But then after a few years they have to leave, and it's a whole issue. I'm not talking about the ones that come, the 10, 20 million that come over the border from Venezuelan prisons and mental institutions in the Congo. I mean the technology experts. So, but there's a rule, right? Supposedly, there's a rule. If you want to live in America, you have to. Now, if you want to be a full American citizen, then you can live in America, no problem. We are actually more liberal. Isn't that interesting? People always say, "Oh, the Jewish people," they say, "Oh, no, we're actually more liberal." We're saying you want to be a citizen, you want to live in Israel, you don't even have to be a full citizen. Full citizen meaning Jew. Anybody can convert to become Jewish. What does becoming Jewish mean? It means you're going to accept the laws of Israel. What does becoming an American citizen mean? It means you're going to accept the laws of America. Right? But we're very liberal. The Jewish people are more liberal than most Western democracies. We're saying you just have to accept 7 rules. The Sheva Mitzvot B'nei Noach, Lo Tirsach, no murder. Lo tigno, no robbery. Lo tinaf, no adultery. Ever min achai. Ever min achai is to eat a part of an animal while it's alive. Birkat Hashem, God forbid, to curse the holy name. Avodah Zarah. Avodah Zarah is idol worship. And there's something, did I skip? How many did I say so far?
6.
I said,
Courts of justice or no?
And set up courts of justice. Thank you. The 7th one is Erkaot. They have to judge people. They have to agree to the principle that if somebody violates this rule, he's judged in accordance with the penalties imposed by the Torah. So the point is that if they accept these 7 rules, they can live in Israel. Like something very liberal.
They're probably better than some other Jews.
right, exactly. You're right, by the way. Right. But the point, Hazat, many of these Jews, they were uneducated. I feel bad for them, honestly. Like you look at some of these Jews in Israel, they didn't know, they weren't taught anything. It's a crime. Because some of the early institutions of the state of Israel, they were, let's say, socialist. So they had a very some, not all, but some were very anti-religion. Because in the early socialist regimes, let's say in Russia and other places like that, they were very secular, anti-God. So when these socialists came to Israel with the rest of us, and they got some of the centers of power, especially the schools, they kind of got religion out. Now it's changing. Now it's changing, and now there's much more religion in Israel today. My mom tells me when she was growing up in Haifa, it's like she couldn't let people know she was religious. It would have been embarrassing in school. Had somebody know that she was like an observant Jew. It would have been, the teachers would have ridiculed her or whatever. But anyway, thank God that's changing. But a lot of these people don't know anything. That's the truth. Like you go to Tel Aviv, Chazat, they don't know anything. They're good people. Well, they're good people.
Some know, they just choose not to know. Some people don't even know.
No, I listen, I know. I agree with you. But even the ones that choose not to know, they don't know what they're choosing not to know. See what I'm saying? Meaning, I give them the benefit of the doubt that had they, like a lot of these Israelis, you notice when they come to our community, they become religious. You saw that? I was once I was once getting a haircut in Tel Aviv. So one of these Chilonim, bald guy, earring, muscle man, whatever. So we were friendly. We used to talk all the time. So he told me he had his, that he was completely irreligious, Chiloni, the whole thing. Okay, I don't have to describe to you what he did. So he told me his brother moved to the community. Oh, I'm from the community because we used to talk all the time. His brother was like a black hat. He was like coming here. All the kids went to yeshiva, shomer Shabbat, goes to Torah classes. He once asked me, he had an opportunity to move to Brooklyn. He asked me, should I move to Brooklyn? Should I move? I didn't know what to tell him. Normally you say, no, you shouldn't tell a guy to leave Israel. He has to live in Eretz Yisrael. I didn't tell him anything. I didn't say, don't leave, don't stay. I didn't say anything. I know that if he goes to Brooklyn, he becomes religious. I know if he stays in Tel Aviv, he's in Israel, but he's I didn't know what to say. Like, honestly, I don't know what to say. How do I answer that question? I just said, I don't know. Discuss it with your brother. I don't know. Whatever.
Let him move to Ranana.
What?
Let him move to Ranana.
Now we have a Syrian synagogue there. Baruch Hashem. I gotta tell you, it's beautiful. It really is, incidentally. What? So, Mazahar, I'll tell you a story. So, we always used to joke with my son when he was in the army. Years ago, we used to make a joke with him that there's going to be a war in Lebanon, and when he goes to Lebanon, he should go to Beirut and get us a bottle of mazad from Beirut, because my wife used to like cooking Syrian pastries that ever had mazad in Israel. So he says, as a joke, if you ever have to be deployed in Lebanon, go to Beirut, go to the store there, buy some mazad.
Did you bring it back?
So there's a story. So they're like blowing up these, he's in southern Lebanon. It's all one terrorist city after another. It's all the cities here are terrorist cities. They literally had to, I think there's going to be no more cities left in southern Lebanon. It's all tunnels and munitions, it's crazy. So they found a terrorist stronghold. So whatever, they take over the house, they're like, whatever, they got the house, they're checking out for weapons, they're checking for this, and they're looking through the house, and my son, he finds a bottle, a see-through bottle, with some liquid in it. He doesn't know what it is. First he thinks maybe it's, I don't know, he opens it up, it's mazar. It's mazar, so he brought it home. He brought mazar, I don't know. He has a bottle of mazar from Lebanon, just like we told him to bring. So he brought us it. So he has a bottle of mazar, he's going to use it for Havdalah. So that's the thing, right? Yeah, of course, yeah, it's bizarre. When you go into war, the bizarre belongs to the soldiers' order, but this is a bottle of. There's in Jewish law, there's what's called Yeush Shelo Midat. Person has Yeush, he lost something, and there's Yeush Midat. The person knows he lost it, didn't know he lost it. Here they blew up the terrorists in plural, blew up the house. There was Yeush Midat, and there was also the biggest level of Yeush. So that, you can take the bottle.
There's $1 billion in Beirut. They brought you mazahar?
I heard about that. He told me, they found gold galore. It was crazy. It's unbelievable what happened there. But okay, so anyway, getting back. So Sheva Misot Ben Enoch. So this guy Naaman, you notice he doesn't say I'm going to become Jewish. He says, I don't want to do any more Avodah Zarah, meaning he became a Ger Toshav. You understand? So that's the idea of the Ger Toshav, that he became a Ger Toshav. So that was Naaman. Nebuzaradan is the one who destroyed the Beit HaMikdash, and we read about him last week. He was the one who saw the blood boiling, the blood of Zechariah HaNavi, and he killed 940,000 people. And then finally he converted and became a ger. You remember that story? That was last week. So Nebuzaradan, ger sedek. He was a ger sedek.
Most of them in Noach are capital habitat.
Yes, exactly. In other words, a violation. If a goy violates any of Sheva Misot Ben Noach, Hayamita, correct.
Well, I guess 6 to 7 to setting up courts. There's no way.
Right, exactly. Setting up courts to enforce the criminal penalties.
That's on the goy, that's on the country.
No, it's on the goy. The goy has to agree to that. He has to agree that that any violation of the Sheva Misot Ben Noach will be adjudicated in accordance with the court.
That's agree to go to the court.
Right, exactly. In accordance with the courts. They have to set up their courts. If you have, let's say, living together, and they're going to be setting up a court, then that court has to adjudicate or penalize a violation of Sheva Misot Ben Noach as a capital offense. That is correct. Okay. So now, so we said Nebuzaradan Ger Sedek Haya.
What's the difference between a Ger Tzedek and a Ger Toshav?
No, Ger Tzedek accepts 613 mitzvot, all of them.
Oh wow.
Whereas the Ger, a proselyte, like when somebody converts, we have in the community, we don't accept converts. So in the community, we say we don't accept converts for purposes of marriage or whatever. So we're talking about a convert who accepted all the mitzvot in the Torah. That's a Ger Tzedek. Ger Toshav, you can't marry a Ger Toshav. He's a goy, but he can live in Israel. Oh, and I forgot to tell you, Ger Toshav is called Hasid Umot HaOlam, and Hasid Umot HaOlam yesh lo chelek l'olam haba. It also has a portion of the world to come. But you see the beauty of the Jewish belief system, the Torah, the Jewish religion. In all other religions, if you want to be redeemed, certainly in Christianity, you have to be part of the Corpus Christi, right? And if you're not part of the Corpus Christi, there's no redemption. Meaning, if you're not a Christian, you can never be redeemed. You have no portion of the world to come. The Muslims, forget it; they'll kill you if you don't, right? But the Jews, we're very humanistic. We believe you can be a good human being and just have to live by Shem Mitzvot and Enoch.
And you get your portion.
What?
And you get your portion.
And you get your portion, exactly. You got a portion of the world to come, and you can live in Israel if you want to. Really, the Am Yisrael is the most progressive in a good way, because what they call progressive nowadays is nonsensical. But really, we're a very progressive, intelligent, humanistic people. My father wrote a lot about this. He wrote a book many decades ago called In the Shadow of History, where he examines the ideas of humanism, which were developed by the Sephardic Jews who were kicked out of Spain. And when they went into Europe, a lot of the ideas of humanism infiltrated Europe through the Sephardic Jews who had to run away from Spain. It's actually a fascinating book. But so that's where this idea has developed quite a lot. All right, let's continue. Isn't that beautiful? Another arch enemy of the Jewish people. So Sisera, this is when the Jewish people first entered Israel, and all the time that Yehoshua bin Nun was alive, that Joshua was alive, things were great for Israel. We were defeating all our enemies, going to war. Everything was great. Yehoshua dies, and then the tribes, every tribe went to his own piece of land, and then they were getting attacked. They were getting attacked from all directions. So one of the more vicious enemies of the Jewish people were the Canaanites who lived in the northern part of Israel. And the general of the army there was a person called Sisera. So Sisera, he had an army of iron chariots, and the Jewish people didn't know what to do. I mean, it's like imagine there's an army with tanks, and you're like foot soldiers here. What are you going to do against a tank? So this guy had hundreds of iron chariots, back then very advanced military hardware, let's call it, and they were being oppressed. And finally God told Deborah, by the way, here's another, we're talking about the progress. Deborah was a prophetess. She was a woman. It's crazy. I mean, think about it. We're talking about again, women's rights, how progressive the Torah is. The Torah is progressive in a good way. So the Nevi'ah, back then it wasn't a Navi, it was a Nevi'ah, and he told her, tell the Jewish people to attack, to get ready for the war, they're going to win the war. And this guy Sisera, he ends up abandoning the army, he's running for his life, he enters the tent of a woman called Yael, she said, come here, don't worry, everything will be okay. And I'll tell you in a moment what happened, but he was dying of thirst. Now when you're in the war, and you didn't drink, and you're running for your life, you don't realize how thirsty you are. But when suddenly you stop, and you need water, and he was dying for water. So she was very shrewd. She had a whole vat of milk, and she gave him the milk to drink. Now, he was so thirsty, he just gulped the whole thing down. And then he had to fall asleep. So while he was sleeping, she killed him. And that was the end of the war. So that was Yael, Eshet Chever HaKeni. So Sisera, this Sisera, he was, what does it say? From his children, from the children of Sisera, they studied Torah in Yerushalayim. So this part of the class, I wasn't sure whether I should share it with you. How did what?
Because you said that, now we want to hear it.
Yeah. So go check my office. Tell me if there's bottles of water there. I think they might have gotten one later. If not, I'll just get from here. What?
Don't bring in the milk.
Don't bring the milk. I like that. Just the water, please. Just the water. So, okay. So there's some debate regarding, we don't know about the children of Sisera, like who are they? So there's actually a Kabbalistic debate. One of the Hachamim is Rabbi Menachem Azariah Mipano. He was a great Kabbalist from the 17th century Italy. And Rabbi Menachem Azariah Mipano, he has a Perush where he examines and he asks this question of who were his children. So the answer is, and I'll repeat it when Shlomo comes in so he hears the answer. He says it was for Rabbi Akiva. So Rabbi Akiva was a descendant of Sisera. That's what he says. No, just pour me water here. So what you missed is that the descendant of Sisera that studied Torah in Yerushalayim was Rabbi Akiva, and Rabbi Akiva had sons, and they studied Torah in Yerushalayim. Now they ask, but how could that be? And why doesn't the Gemara? So this Hakam, Rabbi Menachem Azariah Mipano, from the Torah it comes out that she was seducing, meaning Yael seduced this general, and they had relations. Now, and then he drank the milk, and he had relations, and he went to sleep. Now, the descendant of that, affair, whatever you want to call it, so she was Yael ben Eshet Chaver HaKeni. She had children, and the descendants of the descendants, generations, centuries, and even thousands of years later, that was Rabbi Akiva. Interesting, right? So, and there's various Kabbalistic approaches to this. Ha'ari takes a slightly different approach, but they both agree that Rabbi Akiva came from that relationship between. The Ari's approach is a little different. He has a more Kabbalistic explanation, but the Rabbi Menachem Azariah Mipano is also a Kabbalistic rabbi, and I gave you his explanation, okay, not the Ari. The Ari has a book called Shara Kavanot, and in the Shara Kavanot, he also says that it was Rabbi Akiva, but he gets to it from a slightly different route. Okay, so that was Sisera. מבני בניו של סנחריב לימדו תורה ברבים ומן נינהו שמעיה ואבטליון. Another arch enemy of the Jewish people, Sanhedrin. Who was Sanhedrin? He was the one that we were studying about for many classes. We had about the king that came from Assyria, came to Israel, started destroying all the villages around Jerusalem in a horrific fashion, killing the people, massacring people. And then he got to Jerusalem, and you remember Yeshaya Navi tells the king, Hizkiah, don't be afraid. Jerusalem was not going to fall. And then Sanhedrin, his whole army, 185,000 people, they all died that night. And him and his sons are the only ones who remain alive. This Sanhedrin, mipnei banav limedu Torah barabim. They were teachers of Torah. Uman ninhu shemaya ve'avtalion. So if you look at Pirkei Avot, it starts with Shimon HaSadiq, right? Shimon HaSadiq was, let's say, in the days of the Second Temple, very early on. He was in the chain of Torah transmission. Then you have Antignos Ish Socho in the chain. He was a student of Shimon HaSadiq. And then you have 5 Zugot. 5 Zugot means 5 pairs of Hachamim in each generation. One after another, after another, after another. Shemaya ve'avtalion are the 4th pair. So Shemaya ve'avtalion were the Rashi Yeshiva in Jerusalem, and their student, you know who he was? Hillel. Exactly. So these Shemaya ve'avtalion were the teachers of Hillel. Hillel was one of the greatest Hachamim ever. And they were from the descendants of Sanhedrin. And this is a beautiful Gemara, because again, it shows the Jewish attitude towards humanity. And that attitude is there is always hope. And even the most evil person may have generations later, could have a son who decides to convert. And what does that mean? It means as follows. That the Torah is so beautiful that if given a chance to expose the Torah, even the most evil person will say, you know what? I like this. It's nice. Yeah. It's real. Yeah. So even the most evil person, meaning the what?
You gave a similar example last week. Generations later, right?
Yeah.
That the descendants came back and they became Talmidim Chachamim.
Yes, exactly.
So this is a
Or
second example.
exactly. Or we were talking about the son of Hamas, whatever his name is, and you see him all the time on social media. That guy with the thick beard. His father was one of the main Hamas guys, and he Hazar b'tshuva. He says the Jews are great, Israel is great. You have to be a genius. Hazar b'tshuva, and he became Bnei Banav Shel Sanhedrin. You know, who knows? Maybe his children, maybe his grandchildren, maybe his great-grandchildren will study Torah in Yerushalayim.
He went Christian.
What? Okay, fair enough. No, fair enough. But the point is, you see that the transformation. Just think of the quantum jump from the father who was Hamas, main Hamas terrorist. Okay, son of Christian. Who knows? Maybe the grandchild will say, "I want to be Jewish. I don't want to be Christian." Right? He sees the truth. Okay. Let's continue. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, shakol ha'amim nidbaro. מבני בניו של המן למדו תורה בבני ברק. Also, Haman HaRasha, he was the archenemy of the Jewish people in the days of the Persian Empire, and he passed the law to basically, genocide against the Jewish people. And his descendants, they were studying Torah in Bnei Barak. In the days of after the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash, the yeshiva moved from Yerushalayim, and one of the times it was in Bnei Barak. There's a few explanations of what Bnei Barak means, but you know the famous story in the Haggadah of Pesach that the Hachamim were mesubim b'Bnei Barak, and it was the night of Pesach, and they were discussing Yetziat Mitzrayim. And they were discussing the whole night, back and forth, till the students came, hey, it's time to pray Shachrit, we have to pray. Time for the tefillah. So there's a few explanations why they were in Bnei Barak. One is that there was a Roman persecution in Jerusalem, so they ran away to Bnei Barak, a different part of Israel. Another explanation is, this is the one of Abarbanel. No, it wasn't a city. Bnei Barak means they were wearing shiny clothing, like Milashon Barak, meaning they were studying Torah, and they had like a shiny, coming out of them, because when the Shekhinah is with the, imagine all these Chachamim, these great Chachamim studying Torah, it was like sparks of light. So that's more Abarbanel, although he refers to the clothing, I'm the one who is associated with the Shekhinah. So that's Haman. There was another person who was going to make the switch but didn't quite do it. So let me tell you who that other person was. That other person was Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar, God was thinking, you know what? This will be a great example. It's good because God is doing all this to show us the power of the Torah, the beauty of the Torah, right? That even the worst person can have a descendant, as I said, who eventually will see the light. And and light always dispels darkness, right? It's just the way it is. So there's darkness and there's light, the light will always win. So God was thinking, Nebuchadnezzar, that would be a great candidate for this type of transformation. He was the king. He was the king of Babylonia, who destroyed Jerusalem. I mean, his general was Nebuzaradan, but the king was Nebuchadnezzar. Amru malachei hasharet lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The malachim, they heard of this plan, and they told God, Ribono shel olam, creator of the cosmos, mi she'achriv et betecha, v'saraf etecha leicha. He was ultimately in charge. I mean, Nebuzaradan was doing what he was told to do, but the one who was giving the order is Nebuchadnezzar. This person, he personally burnt the Beit HaMikdash, meaning he's responsible. V'saraf etecha leicha, the holiest place in the Beit HaMikdash, the Hechal. You're going to make him convert? Right? You're going to let him or his children rather convert? It's too much. That's already too much. There has to be a limit. Meaning, this is all beautiful. Everything we read, beautiful stories, true stories. but there's also a limit, right? Yani, Nebuchadnezzar did what he did. Haman wanted to do what he wanted to do, but he didn't actually accomplish it. So we can tolerate in our minds, okay, this guy Haman, real low life, potential Hitler, but he wasn't a Hitler as it turned out, not because he was good, but because God was kind with us. Okay, so we can see his descendants of descendants of descendants, stunning Torah and Ben Belak. We can wrap our minds around that, right? You can't wrap your mind around somebody like Nebuchadnezzar, who himself accomplished what he wanted to do. He set out to do it and he did it. That's already too much. So we can't accept Nebuchadnezzar. And there's a pasuk that says Rafinu et Babel v'lo let me read this pasuk correctly, and then I'm going to take questions if there are any questions, and we will. I have an important question also. The pasuk says Ripinu et Babel. We cured Babel. Rupinu et Babel velo nirpata. And yet Babylonia was not curable. That's referring to the fact that Nebuchadnezzar was not curable. And the Malachi Asher, they objected to the idea of Nebuchadnezzar having children who become Talmidei Chachamim. So according to Allah, this is referring specifically to Nebuchadnezzar, to whom we wanted to cure, but at the end we did not cure. You remember last year, by the way, when we studied the book of Daniel? Was that last year?
Yep.
Right, and we were talking about how Nebuchadnezzar almost made teshuvah, and he said these beautiful words. When he saw how the Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah were saved from the fire, he began to praise God in such a beautiful way that almost David HaMelech was going to be embarrassed. So it's an allusion to that. He was beginning to maybe make teshuvah, but then that's it, boom, it stopped. Okay. Let's stop here. Any questions? What's happening with the Yankees? I know you're all looking at you. Not good. The silence. Not good.
Silence is not golden.
It's over?
It's over? No, it's not over.
No, their chances are over.
Why? 3 games? Still, they have 7 games. Yeah.
There's only
Wow.
one team that ever came back from
How
that.
bad is
Nobody ever.
There's one team.
Which one?
The Red Sox against the Yankees.
Oh, the Red Sox against the Yankees.
The only time.
Okay, so maybe Vinhafochu.
There's always next year.
Maybe there'll be a reversal. Maybe this time the Yankees will come back. No, I don't know. Everybody's so glum. So sad. All right, I don't know. All right, sorry.
One chick got injured.
Rabbi Hananya, at least can we say the Kaddish shorts? Okay.
Sorry,